Aside from general performance optimization, so making sure your pods have enough resources like CPU and memory, making sure that there are enough worker nodes available to give those pods the CPU and memory, because of course the worker nodes, that's where the memory and the CPU come from. But what about, there's then a special use case. So maybe you have some pods that scale up and scale down based on a particular event, right? So you're going to have, your general resource optimization, but what about if you have an application stack that based on a certain event needs to scale up and scale down? And that's where KEDA comes into play. So KEDA gives you this specialized resource optimization, and that's what we're going to take a look at in this video. So first things first, well actually let's even, just take a look at the general page here. As you can see, it's application autoscaling, just like general resource optimization, performance optimization, but it's based on, as we can see here, particular events. And there are a bunch of scalars that are available. We're going to take a look at those in just a second. But first, what I want to do is I just want to show you the installation process. Now, there are a couple of different options. General, Kubernetes manifest that you can install with, the operator, and Helm charts. So from a package management perspective, being able to manage KEDA as an application stack within itself, I like to go with the Helm chart installation. So let's go ahead and take a look at that here really quick. Now I'm on an AKS cluster. We can just take a look at this here. 3 worker nodes running version 1.28.5 of Kubernetes. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add the repo. Next, any updates if we have them. And as you can see, it's going to update everything, not just KEDA, but just in case. And then what we can do is the installation. Now, there's nothing that you really have to change in the values.yaml unless you want to, but for the default install, you don't have to. The biggest thing is we're just going to create the KEDA namespace as we do the installation. So let's go ahead and run this install here. And then as we can see, we got actually a couple of different things that we can utilize here. So there are some samples. There are a couple of different helper commands that we can use. So let's go ahead and just take a look at one. Get an overview of the horizontal pod autoscalers, HPA, that KEDA uses behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and run kubectl get HPA all namespaces, right? Now, as you can see, we have nothing deployed yet, but if we did, we would see some output here. Now, if you're wondering, hey, why wouldn't I just use HPA? Well, you actually can. HPA and KEDA, they work together. You don't have to just use one or the other, because remember, KEDA is really just for event-driven autoscaling. It's for a specialized purpose. So now what I want to do is I just want to head back over to the browser here, and I want to look at the scalars. Now, the scalars are where KEDA really comes into play, okay? Because remember, there's this specialized use case, so to speak. So remember, there's this specialized use case for our applications. So as you can see, KEDA scalars can both detect if a deployment should be activated or deactivated and feed custom metrics for a specific event resource. And again, this is really where it comes into play here. Custom metrics for a specific event resource. So KEDA isn't a replacement for horizontal pod autoscaling. It is an addition based on if you have an application stack that has particular events that need to scale up and scale down resources. And as you can see, there are a bunch of different use cases. There are 64 scalars available. We can see everything from Apache. If we scroll down, we have a bunch of AWS stuff here, a bunch of Azure stuff. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at one specifically for Kubernetes. So if we look at Kubernetes here, let's try that again. Kubernetes workload. Scale applications based on the count of running pods that match the given selectors. So let's go ahead and click on that. And as we can see, there are particular trigger specifications. So this is some YAML configuration here that we can utilize with KEDA, and we can do the pod selector, the value, and then the activation value. And we can see the definitions here. pod selector, that's just going to be your application that you're using based on a label that's deployed. The value target relation between the scaled workload and the amount of pods which match the selector, it will be calculated following the formula relation equals pods which match selector divided by scaled workload pods. And then activation value, target value for activating the scaler. And we're also going to talk a little bit about this whole scale to zero thing here as well. So to see how this works, let's go ahead and deploy an application. So we'll just do a simple, Nginx deployment here. All right, just for the purposes of this, we'll get rid of this service here because it's not really necessary. And then we'll do is kubectl apply -f nginx deploy service.yaml, right? And if we just do a quick kubectl get pods watch, we can now see that our pods are running. So if we create a new YAML here, new file, we'll call it KEDA test.yaml, right? And then we'll go back to the instructions here and we'll just copy this example and we'll update it for our environment. And we'll take this example here. So for example, just like that. And then what we can do is we can see the labels for our Nginx deployment. Right, so app equals Nginx deployment. All right, and let's just go ahead and give that a shot, see if it works. Apply -f KEDA test. All right, and as we can see here, that workload was created. So if we just do kubectl get scaled object, we can see that this was deployed. However, if we take a look here, notice how it says scaled target name and it says workload deployment. So let's actually update that for our Nginx deployment here. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do another apply. Okay, and now we can see that select target name is specified. So now if any particular events come in for our Nginx deployment, it will kick off this scaled object resource. Now, what if there are no events coming in? Maybe this application doesn't even have to run at all at the moment. Well, that's actually where the concept of scale to zero comes into play. So notice here with the scaled object, we can actually scale our deployments down to zero. And this will of course save on resources if the application doesn't necessarily need to be running at this exact time because no events have kicked off. So we could actually change this right to zero here. And if we do another apply, notice here how that's been configured. And we can get that scaled object. And we don't really see any changes here, of course, because the trigger hasn't been activated. And one thing actually here, so this is a common occurrence. Scale target reference. Now we want to make sure that this is the exact deployment name. But if we go back to our Nginx deployment, we can actually see that's in fact not the name of the deployment. So if I run kubectl get deployment, we can see there's actually a hyphen here. So we're going to want to go ahead and update this again. Again, this is a common occurrence. So if you want to take a look at the docs, you can see that it does specify the deployment name specifically there. All right. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and we can do a quick update again. And boom, as we see, our ready status now says true. So again, that's a common occurrence just in case you run into it. And that's how we can not only get KEDA up and running, but ensure that we're using a particular scaler. Thank you so much for watching.